What's up, YouTube? Gary coming at you here. Just wanted to go over some things. I've been getting some questions about what it takes, to write down some notes and things and set up information. Now, one of the reasons why I don't share, our setup information is because it does change. Okay, setups are very dependent on the driver, track conditions, weather conditions, what type of track that it is, also how you scale the car, the tire compound, okay, how fast does the track wear down your tires. Okay, all these factors play into hand. What is your driver? I got a quick kick in that. What is your driver's driving style? Okay. So, it's one of those things that it's easier just to show a blank piece and then go over some stuff. So, as you'll see here, we have what we call the crosshair. And this obviously is labeled for the front. Okay. And this would be the rear of the car on these two quadrants. You'll see here that it says PSI. We have spring and shock. What the car weighs at this sector. The percentage of that. Temp. The ambient temp. The weather conditions. The track. And then down here we get in to some other stuff. What is the tire temp? The tire durometer. Okay, we test in 4 locations. Tread depth. This tells us how fast the track is wearing off the tire. Okay, because if the tire's slicking it off, we're losing grip. So, qualifying time, your camber. At the track that we are currently running for points at, we are only allowed camber in one tire and everything else has to be straight up for that class. What's your toe? And then on the back of the card is blank so we can put notes. Now, the second reason why this is blank is because most people will see a setup card and they're like, oh yeah, I can definitely do that. They set the car to that and then they realize that they're not that fast. Like I said, there's several different factors. Okay. How much fuel do you consume by your driving style? If the racing line and you're mid-pack, obviously you could draft up and conserve some fuel. But in the off chance that you can't, okay, that creates a little bit of an issue because now your car's going to weigh a little bit less. So that's also going to affect your handling. Okay. Now obviously we don't get into stuff like, the suspension geometry and things on this because this is just stuff that we could do at the track. Okay, little adjustments here, little adjustments there. So, as we get in to what this card can tell us, okay, we can look and see what type of tire pressure, how effective that it was per qualifying time, how the camber was set up, which affects the qualifying time, the tire, if that tire is actually working for us. Now, if you're at a track where, they have a set tire, obviously that information is going to change. We're allowed in our class for the compacts to run DOT approved tires. Okay, so that could be a wide variety of brands, but it has to be size specific to the type of car that you're using. Okay, so and you can't go no wider than 7. So that, you know, we know what tire size, but different compounds of tires may work for different types of conditions, which that's where this information, the tire temp, the tire durometer, the tread depth, all play into that decision. Okay, the camber and toe are not as important into that as the tire information. And anybody that's into racing will tell you tires win races. Okay, it's just one of those things. It happens. So I can't really go into too much on that, because it's probably been beat to death time and time again. Also important, okay, how the car weighs and the percentages. Okay, we have a weight rule, and you're only allowed so many pounds. Because these are front wheel drive, obviously all your weight's going to be to the front and very little weight in the back. So the way that it works out is like 60% of your weight in the front, and then they want 50% of the weight in the rear. Okay, that pretty typical. Now, for the springs and shocks, obviously we can't really do that with the compact class, but we do rate the springs to make sure that they're not giving way. We don't cut anything or anything like that, because if you do, you're under ride height, and you get dinged by tech. Shocks, OEM, but we could still determine, okay, is this shock a little more bouncy? Now, we are allowed to run spring rubber in one in each tire, or all in one tire. Okay. Those are kind of nice, but usually when we have the spring and shock on in this class anyway, it's basically to tell us, okay, do we need to replace? Okay. And obviously this is a little index card, so it fits into the little plastic clipboard thingy, and we can go back, see the video, see if we're pulling off the turn too early, too late, or are we going into the turn too hard or too late or too early. How are we in the apex? These are driving things, but also, is the driver feeling that setup to allow them to do what they need to do? Okay, is it an inside lane? Can it handle on the outside? Are there 2 racing lanes on that track? Are there 3? Those are all variables, and that's why setup is so important to understand. Now, obviously, this is for asphalt. Dirt's going to be entirely different. Okay. With the compacts, knowing your Ackerman, knowing your steering radius. I mean, obviously, you can't make adjustments to this, but knowing that information allows you to adapt. So when we know that when we go to square the car, when we go to, also we're not allowed using like rear stagger or anything like that in this class. So that's a big deal. So I don't want to get too far off a topic with this, but it does, knowing this information gives us a great baseline, and this is exactly what we use day in, day out. And most of the time, we just write this information into a notebook on our phone, take it back to the card, the day after the race, plug in all the information, and then we keep these basically at home and get to study them and know, okay, well, during these conditions, we could set the car like this, and we know roughly what it's going to do. Obviously, things, how the driver's feeling, how they're able to handle the car at that given day, what's on their mind, all that stuff is a variable. So, and like I said, in the practice makes perfect video, your data that you're going to get is only a baseline. Okay, all this stuff here is all a baseline. And it just gets you into the ballpark. You're going to have to fine-tune some stuff. It's inevitable. There's always going to be adjustments that need to be made. And, when, like our practice sessions on the day of racing, we might get 1 to 3 practice sessions. And then we go out for qualifying. Now, there's like 5 to 6 classes that are running on that day. Okay? By the time that the features start, hours have went by. That means that the track conditions have changed dramatically from your qualifying setup. There may be more rubber onto the track. There may be engines blown onto the track. Parts that actually have more rubber than not, due to accidents and things like that. Okay. All of that you have to take into account because you don't get to practice right before you go to the feature. Okay, and that's why I said all this stuff is just a baseline, because we could say, okay, looking at the weather forecast, it's going to cool down by about 10 degrees. Okay. Now, judging by the amount of wrecks that's out there on the day, we know that the track is getting faster. Now we can make some more adjustments. Okay. Maybe we get a chance to take a track temp. On the rare occasion, we get to do that. Usually, we're trying to, either watch a race, see how the track's doing, or we're tinkering with the car. Anyway, I hope this helps understand a little more information and as to why we don't post specific setup information, or at least why I don't. And understanding that it's not because, somebody's cheating or somebody's, being mischievous or whatever. We tell people this at the track too when we're helping them out. Look, we can give you our exact setup, but the problem is that if you run that exact thing, you're not going to get the results. Because even we change what we do, by the whim. So, with that being said, like, comment, share, subscribe. Take a look at the next video that's going to be coming out. More on the pit cart build, the Milwaukee pit cart. And, by all means, keep it onto the track.